Hey everyone, welcome. I think we have a quorum. Brent let us know that he won't be able to make it today. And I did not get a response from Ian. I haven't heard from Marge. She said she'd be able to make it originally, but obviously I don't see her here yet. Yep, I think that's all the info I have for folks. Oh, here's Marge. And Mark.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, Mark. Hey, Joel. Hey, Chuck. Hey, Debbie. Hey, Marge.
Hi.
So I missed the early part of your rundown there, Daniel. Is Brent? So we're
Brent let me know that he will not be joining today.
Okay.
And Ian did not respond. And John McAvoy is no longer on SWAC and DSAC. So I think that is everyone.
Okay. Cool. Everyone being here and accounted for as much as we know. I'll go ahead and gavel this work session into existence, I guess. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for attending. So the usual procedure is first we just acknowledge that we are still receiving public input. It's going into our long list of things that we'll look at when we have the opportunity, when we have the latitude to do so. I wanted to also just indeed, say a word for John McAvoy and just acknowledge and honor his attendance and dedication to SWAC and DSAC, over many years, I think, and to just wish him well as his term has ended. Let's see. Is there any other business before we get rolling with the reports about what's going on with the work group? Okay, Joel's having a mic problem. So he'll be rejoining us shortly. So we have various members of the subcommittees and also of the work group here with us. So Marge, would you like to start us off?
Sure. I wanted to, just mention where we are with the work group, which is that at tomorrow night's meeting, we will discuss the report in its present state, and that includes reports from all the subcommittees that are pulled together into one entire report. And it's going to be sent to SWAC and the Planning Commission on January 25th. And it's our responses are due on February 10th. And so what I'm wondering is how are we going to handle that? How do we get comments and then forward our comments back to the work group? And I wondered if maybe we could have subcommittees the way we have subcommittees for the work group, so that maybe one subcommittee could zero in on, 3 of the work group subcommittees, and then we could get together for a meeting and maybe compare notes. I don't know, that was just my idea, but maybe Ken has that on the schedule to discuss that later as a business for this SWAC meeting. Okay, so I think we've got a number of people here who are on the different subcommittees. In fact, the only subcommittee that's probably not represented is legal. And so what I thought I would do is talk about subcommittee E, because I'm the only member here. Oh,
Yeah.
Ken, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, just I want to answer your first point before we roll into the subcommittees, because who knows how long we'll be with all that. So first of all, the SWAC and DSAC are not reviewing all of the subcommittee reports. We're only reviewing the SMMP subcommittee report.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, neither did I.
Oh.
It wasn't all that clear.
No,
I am correct
no.
about that. Am I, Daniel?
I don't think so. No, I'm sorry if that was how I communicated it. The understanding that I had is, and Sam can correct me if I'm wrong, but that the entire draft in terms of all the subcommittee work is essentially going to be going to SWAC and DSAC. But Sam has his hand up. Maybe Sam might be able to be a better resource here.
Yeah, could you answer that question, Sam?
Yeah, my intent has always been that SWAC DSAC can look at all, I'm making this up because I don't remember, like 345 pages of it, not just the SMMP section.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what's always been talked about. I mean, that's how I heard it a number of times.
Yes, and me also, but Daniel and I did have a communication where I kind of asked that question and got a different answer. So there must have just been a misunderstanding. So Marge, indeed, your question about how do we handle that? That's a very appropriate question, right? Because the report is quite large. We have only like 10 days or something like that to review it and get our comments in. And what has been scheduled so far is, I think, our next session happens during that review period.
It happens after the review period. Yeah, our next scheduled meeting is February 15th, and the comments are due February 10th. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I've lost the thread on this. It appears entirely. Yeah, Chuck, do you have a comment?
Thank you, Ken. Let's see. Sam sent out a report last night, and I was reading through it. The body of it was an excellent work done by him, leading back from the beginning of Immortal with the tribes all the way down to today. I mean, it was a good storyline that followed a good chronological order. But besides that, I'm hoping that when it comes in, it will be a composite report for SWAC to be able to go through and then comment on it. And I'm hoping it will be all electronically correct or pretty close being correct. That's just an estimation that we can then have the week to just kind of go through and make comments. I don't know, I'm only speculating, but if you have any other insight, I'll be more than happy to yield to somebody else.
Yeah, sure. Daniel?
I don't have a response to Chuck, but just to Marge's comment about the next meeting, Chair Eklund and I went back and forth on getting that date scheduled, and it's going to be February 8th, not February 15th. So that'll be within the review period.
Oh, you should let people know that.
Really? Really?
Uh, so,
But it's good to
Joel?
know. It's good
Yeah,
to know.
good to know.
Yeah.
Should let people know that.
Hey, Rebecca, your microphone is on. I'm not sure you're aware.
Yeah, that's great.
Joel?
Yeah, thanks. I was just trying to check if my microphone is working now.
Yes, it is.
Okay, good. Before we go into anything else, I wanted to comment. I sent a item to Daniel requesting that it be included in the packet, but I see it is not included in the packet. This is my statement to the Board of Commissioners on December 6th. So I just want that to be on record that my statement is not included.
If you refresh your page, Joel, it should be included. I updated that today.
I just downloaded it probably about 15 minutes before the meeting, Daniel.
Yeah, it might have been uploaded sooner than that, but feel free to check it now. It should be updated.
Yeah, but it should have gone out a week ago or so.
Okay, yeah, but it's on there.
Yeah, it's not okay. But it wasn't when it was less than an hour ago that I did that. And I haven't looked at it before then.
Yeah. So, good point, Joel. We'll make sure that that is indeed included. It's an important statement. I just want to also note that I'm not sure exactly what's going on, but I did not receive a notification for this meeting. At all. I'm not sure exactly what's kind of going on with the emails. And of course, we don't know exactly where the problem lies. It could certainly be on my end. But so there seems to be problems with the information, the updating, etc.
Yeah.
I sent the meeting notice on Wednesday, the 11th at 3:18 p.m. You were included on it, as well as all the other SWAC members, DSAC members, and interested members of the public.
I got it.
Thank you, Daniel. I just didn't receive it, but that's okay. Debbie?
I just said I got it too.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, Marge.
Yeah, I got that too. But what I have to say is that I always check the web page, because that's like with the work group, that's where the most recent information is. And I'll tell you, I had a hard time finding the meeting information on the website. I then realized that you had to go to meetings, agendas and meetings, and from there you could link to this other web page. But I think it would have been a lot more intuitive if that information was on the webpage. Anyway, I had problems too.
Yeah.
And I noticed that the packet that we got has comments all the way back to August. And that kind of disturbed me. That, I mean, how many months is that? That's almost a half a year. And maybe I'm more disturbed than because I've been conscious of it, because that's one of Subcommittee E's responsibilities, is to look at communication in general. And well, from the point of view of the various activities that have to do with solid waste, with the landfill, and then communication patterns that have been established through this process will then be rolled out to Benton County, other Benton County processes as well. But one of my big issues there is public communications. We got lots of communications from the public, and it's not available to us in the work group. Now, here, and now I see this with SWAC that there are some really good letters in here. And I only discovered it about a half an hour before this meeting started. And I'm just a bit bothered by that. So anyway, I will be quiet until it's my turn to report on subcommittee E.
Okay, thank you, Marge. This is an extraordinary time. I mean, we're I don't know what else. I agree with you, that it's really disturbing, to kind of see what's going on. Mark, you've got your hand up, please.
Yeah, thanks, Ken. I was just going to ask Daniel, what is happening with any communications that are received to SWAC and DSAC? Is the county responding in any way to say, we have received your communication, however, we're currently prohibited from talking to you? I don't know what the proper term is, but have those communication efforts been acknowledged by anyone from Benton County staff?
Yeah, typically we send out a response essentially saying that their comments will be included in the SWAC DSAC packet. My responses have not included any sort of information about what SWAC's status is in terms of when they will be addressing those comments in terms of other agenda items that are non-BCTT work sessions. That's certainly something I can include though, but so far the acknowledgement is essentially that we've received the communication and we're going to be including it in the SWAC DSAC packets. I do specifically say that it'll be included in the next meeting packet with the intention that I think we mapped out earlier in this process, that these comments would be sort of held over until they're able to be sort of included on other agenda items that are not BCTT related.
Well, it seems to me like I would recommend at least that we expand whatever the county is saying to clarify, because there's nothing more frustrating than submitting comments and then getting no response as a resident or a citizen. So it seems like we ought to be saying something to the effect of, we're only able to communicate relative to what's happening with the Benton County Talks Trash Work Group, and other comments we've been prohibited by the Board of Commissioners to engage in that process.
Yeah, I'm happy to
Otherwise,
include that
yeah.
language if it's helpful.
Yeah, otherwise it makes it look like we're typical government. Yeah, I sent them a letter, but I never heard from them.
Yes, I would agree with that, Mark. That would be good to expand upon that language, and kind of acknowledge, again, what I call the extraordinary circumstance. Joel?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that in response to my own comment, I never received an acknowledgement that Daniel received that last item that I sent for the packet. So if I'm not receiving these acknowledgements, I guess a lot of other people might not be too. So it's not a good situation.
Yeah, Chuck.
I just noticed that at 6:18, we're limited to an hour, and I'd sure like to hear about the subcommittee, especially the SWMPP, if I got the anagram right there.
Sure. But before we move on to the subcommittees, I just want to talk a little bit and kind of get some finalization about how we plan on addressing the report when it actually comes to us, which will be shortly. And so since we are having a meeting on the 8th, which is before that, the thing that I think we need to do is for people to comment on the report, as much of it, as they can indeed address, of the 400 pages or whatever. Prepare those written comments so those can be forwarded on. And then we will have a meeting. It'll be 2 hours long on the 8th. So we'll be able to kind of go through those and discuss those and bring those together as much as we can in the time allotted, which I'm sure is not going to be sufficient because the document is indeed so huge. That's my proposal for how we handle that. Does anyone have any things to add? Is that agreeable to everyone? Yeah, Joel.
Did you say February 8th? I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, did I say
Okay.
January? I meant
Oh,
February 8th.
I just heard the 8th, so I wasn't sure. So, okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Let me check my schedule here.
And I think it's the same time as usual, except it's 6 to 8 instead of 6 to 7. Okay, hearing nothing else, eager to move on to the subcommittees. Who wants to go first? Marge, is that you?
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
I'm unmuted. The subcommittee E has two charges. One is to write the history for the work group document, the entire document, and the other is to look at communication patterns and evaluate. I guess it's recognized that we don't have very good communication paths in place at the county. I think the CUP and the franchise agreement were not publicized. And the fact that I'm also kind of on the subcommittee to write the history. One thing that Mark Henkels, who is the other person who was writing the history, we're writing it together. And he is a professor of public policy at Western Oregon University. And so it's been a wonderful, wonderful resource on this. But the way that we compiled a lot of history is that we went through local newspaper archives and just spent hours and hours and hours reading, with keywords. You can search on keywords and reading articles and postings. And what became apparent to me is that 10 years ago, 20 years ago, even 5 years ago, there was a lot more information readily accessible to the population of Benton County regarding important things that regarding SWAC. They generally posted tombstone notices, like these 3x4 kind of special notices about meetings, and they would say, oh, we're going to discuss this, we're going to discuss this, public invited, this and this. And there just was a lot more community engagement than there is now. And I don't know how that happened, why it's tapered off, but boy, it was sure apparent to me in doing this research that there's a big difference in how things used to work and how they do work today. And I think that the other part of the subcommittee that is focusing on communication patterns, I think is doing a lot of work in that area. And yes, newspapers don't reach the amount of people today that they used to, but that's no reason to not communicate in the newspaper. Yeah, you just need other communication paths as well. And so that's one thing that the subcommittee, working with Corey Grogan, who's the public informations officer for Benton County, to begin to evaluate all those and find ways in which to use those other communication paths like Facebook and next door ads and this and radio communications. So and so I did want to say though that the other thing that that came up was the fact that in the work group, we still can't see comments. We cannot see public comments. And that was, I was, we were kind of told that was going to be fixed, but before this meeting, I checked again, and it has not yet been fixed. And that's just a personal thing for me. Yeah, and keeping, well, I mean, and this is another thing, keeping the web page updated. When somebody leaves, when somebody new comes on, how do we know? And how do we know who is maybe potentially going to be a member? I think that would be really interesting information for us to have. Yeah, okay, so how is SWAC going to receive this document? I guess I still have that question on my plate. The work group document, will it be in packet form? Will it be a packet, or it'll be just maybe the same thing that we received in the work group, in the general work group, except it'll be under packet?
So, Daniel, I think this is a question for you. How are we going to receive the grand document? From
Yeah, thank you. So I think it's probably actually a better question for Sam if he's around. Oh, there we go, Sam. If you want to speak to this.
I think it's going to come the way it came last night. It's going to be a Word document that has links to the subcommittee reports, and a PDF which has the subcommittee reports literally attached to the integrated document. The challenge we found out last night is, and I'm sure there's ways around this, is that the PDF version of the whole thing, I think it was like 12 or 13 megabytes, and some people have a limit of 10 megabytes on their email services. So we just have to figure out. In a perfect world, I would like to get both documents to you in PDF and in Word, because Word is easier to edit than the PDF is. But there was that one glitch last night about some people, I think it's a limit of 10, and then it didn't get through, so I had to resend it out this afternoon.
And Sam, I think it would probably be in a link form as opposed to like an emailed document, which would help with the file size issues.
Okay, well then, yeah, you could put both links on the website and then provide the links, and they can download a PDF version, and they can download a Word version.
I'll rely on you guys to handle how exactly that's going to happen. The one thing I will add to that is that you should accompany it with an email, just a plain email, saying that you should have received the document. So that people who do not receive the document for whatever reason know that they haven't. Joel.
Yeah, I just was going to say it's a no-brainer to put this as a link on the website instead of emailing large documents. And these are public documents, and they should be on the website. And also, hello, Brent. Good to see you're showing up here. So,
yeah, cool. And Mark?
Yeah, hi, Brent. Thanks, sir. Good to see you. A question for Sam. Will we be getting draft 3? Is that what we're anticipating? Because draft 2 is going to the work group. One assumes that there'll be some additional changes to the document, and we'll get the next draft.
So yes, you'll be asked to comment on draft 3. So tomorrow night's meeting is designed like the last month's meeting, which was to have the subcommittees present their sections and ask for comments or questions or suggestions. That work will then be captured during the course of the meeting and incorporated into draft 3. Also, we're hoping for a major style rewrite where for each of the findings, if you've had time to skim the document, you'll see there's like land use finding 1, land use finding 2, recommendation, land use recommendation 1, 2. We're hoping to have that linked. So each finding and each recommendation has a hyperlink that takes you right to the body of each subcommittee's report. So, and each finding right now, they're all over the map. I just sent out an email earlier this afternoon to make it clear that there will be more freestanding.
Great, thank you very much.
So Brent, welcome. We're discussing essentially the work group is going to be sending to SWAC DSAC the full report in its draft form. And so we have 10 days or so to review that, to make comments. We'll be meeting on the 8th, a 2-hour meeting to discuss that our comments about the document and kind of compare notes, if you will, and forward on our recommendations, back to the work group after we do our review. But we'll each be reviewing separately, offline, making comments directly into the Word document. Then we'll be meeting, discussing those, and then free to send those comments or kind of our mutual document, both of them actually, on to the work group. So that's what the next item is ahead for us for SWAC and DSAC. And so you're going to be part of that.
Okay, well, thanks. Sorry, I'm halfway around the world right now, so my
really?
connection's not that good, and I'm on a stack of cardboard boxes in a very noisy factory.
Well, you're coming through loud and clear, and it's good to see your face.
Yeah, thanks.
So let's see. Marge, have you finished with the?
Sorry. Yeah, that completes my report. Does anybody have any questions?
Yes.
No. Okay.
Okay. Oh, Joel.
Yeah, I was just curious. Are the subcommittees being given full autonomy to produce their own reports, or is this something? I mean, how does the process work?
Well, I would say it's less than full autonomy. Maybe Sam would like to answer that.
No, let's not go there. Mark?
So yeah, I did have a question for Sam. I have started to review the document, and one of my questions to Sam was, if we have comments on draft number 2, do I just put those into the Word document and then send them to you, send them to the appropriate subcommittee, send them to the entire work group, hold on to them for some discussion? Yeah, I don't know exactly what the process is here for commenting on working draft number 2.
So the primary input mechanism for working draft number 2 is the meeting tomorrow. Beyond that, I am still in the process of talking to the county as to what extra level of input there can be. But as of this moment, the primary mechanism is to get feedback from the work group members themselves to, if you will, fine tune what they have and point out major concerns, because this is going to go through a couple more rounds of edits.
So as a member of a subcommittee, I'm not on the formal work group. I'd have to find someone on the work group to sort of carry my water.
We can certainly do that, but you will, mind you, you're going to have next week subcommittee meetings that will precede draft 3. So you will have the opportunity via the subcommittees, of which you are a member of at least 1 or 2 or 3, to provide that feedback in that forum as well.
Okay, yeah, well, in particular, I had some comments on the history section, and so I'm not a member of that subcommittee. So maybe some clarity on that at some point. We can do that offline. You can communicate with me later. Thanks.
Okay, we ready to move on to another subcommittee? So, Mark, do you want to take the A1 subcommittee?
What is A1? Which one is that?
That's the landfill size longevity.
Oh, I will actually pass on that one. I'll let you talk about that, but I can talk about I think it's A2 or A3, whatever the land use one is, because that's one that no one else here is represented on. So I can speak to that.
Yes.
And then yeah. So anyhow, the land use subcommittee has worked extensively to review all of the prior land use actions that are associated with the landfill and the landfill site. And we've gone through an extensive process of trying to set up some, if you will, some guidelines in terms of how we make determinations as to whether or not prior conditions of approval have been met, whether they have been superseded by some later land use action, or possibly superseded by some DEQ regulations or permit. So we have worked our way through. I don't remember exactly how. I think our document's probably on the 180 pages long. And we are in the process of developing key findings. And this, the document that we have now, there was a subcommittee to the subcommittee, which consisted of myself and Catherine Bisco, who is a member of the work group. I'm not a member of the work group. And Ed Patera, who's also a member of the work group. We worked extensively on adding our comments and discussing and working through whether or not we agreed or disagreed as to whether or not compliance was being achieved. And then my understanding, based on our subcommittee meeting today, is that document has now been is in the process of being reviewed by the Republic Services local attorney, Jeff Condit, who works up in Portland. He apparently has completed his review, and now it's been sent off to corporate Republic Services. And what Inga Williams reported to us today was he was hopeful that they might get some response from Republic Services a week from Friday. So 8 or 10 days from now. So I don't know how that's going to all play out in terms of how we begin to reconcile any differences, should there be any. But you know, it's been a lengthy process. There's a huge volume of documentation in terms of what the subcommittee has determined, or at least the subcommittee. So yeah, I think that's a summary of where we are. And then tomorrow evening or tomorrow afternoon, Catherine Bisco will be doing the report for the land use subcommittee.
Excellent. Joel, do you have a question?
Yeah, I had heard a rumor that there was some discussion between Republic and county officials about expediting the excavation of the quarry to speed up the possibility for that to be part of the landfill? Is that, do we have any news from that, or should we ask Daniel if he knows about that?
Well, I can say that that has not been discussed as part of the land use subcommittee. There has been some discussion. I'll let Ken talk about that. There has been some reference to that. Bill Broman from Republic Services has mentioned that they are in active discussions with Knife River about, he didn't actually say speeding up excavation, but they're in active discussions with Knife River about cell 6. And Ken can talk about that when he gives the A1 subcommittee report.
Yeah. Are there any more questions for Mark? You're done?
Yes, I am. Unless
Okay.
there's questions, happy to answer any questions
Yeah.
people might have.
Are there any more questions regarding the land use subcommittee? I think that's very interesting work. I haven't had a chance to take a look at what's going on, but a lot of I think context essentially for, is in that report about what the landfill has been, in the county, and what it is become, today. I think is really tied up in that, the work you've been doing.
Yeah, I think
So-
there's probably 20 or 25 different key different land use decisions that are associated with this work. And there's I would say a handful of them that are very contextual in terms of how we got to here: 1974, 1983, 1994, 2003, those sorts of things. Not every one of them is important, but there are some that are critical.
Yep. So let's move on. And Chuck, I had noted your comment earlier that you wanted to hear about what's going on with the SMMP, the committee, the subcommittee, which is developing the advice for the request for a proposal for Benton County actually doing a sustainable materials management plan. So we'll go ahead and do that next. So that's you and me, right, Marge? Do you want me to lead off, or?
Yeah, you go ahead. Yeah, please.
I was afraid you'd say that. So it's been a very interesting time with that particular subcommittee, because we really are trying to make it as forward-looking a management plan as we can, in terms of the specification for it. So very much looking at alternatives for Benton County going forward. I think one of our subcommittee members mentioned, was it John Dool, who just said, if you can sum this up in 2 words, it's beyond landfilling. And so we've really tried to bring in, first of all, to build a foundation upon the sustainable materials management plans of other counties. Had a bunch of those plans in, and we're looking at them and then trying to pick out the best pieces of that, but also introducing the elements which seem to us to be very important for this particular county, considering who we are and kind of what our interests are, countywide, in terms of environmentalism, in terms of waste reduction, in terms of, waste diversion, in terms of innovation, kind of all of those things, protecting the natural environment. So the form that we've taken is one developing a table of contents to hand over to the consultant who eventually gets the contract for this. And so that we tried to make that table of contents very comprehensive in terms of covering the things that we thought were really valuable in other people's, but also adding new sections. Like there's a climate change section, for example. What are the effects of upon, how is the climate crisis going to shape the environment that Benton County sustainable materials move into in the future? And then, how can we respond as a county? How can we respond to that? So, but we've also developed, I would say, kind of the core of expression for us as a subcommittee have been the list of questions that we've come up with that we would like for the consultants to answer. And those really range from the kind of general, how about this, down to kind of very specific questions regarding specific alternatives that we feel the county should be considering. So that's my my quick summary of kind of where that where our subcommittee is, the SMMP, which is the C1 subcommittee. Questions? Chuck?
Yeah, I know you got a hard task because we always talk about the future, and future is tomorrow to infinity. And what's kind of relevant is, some of the newer technologies will be coming out by 2040, but we still got health puzzle to assure that we can still, dispose of solid waste or refuse that needs to be disposed. So I wish you luck on that and fortitude and stuff. Okay.
Okay.
And I know we'll keep our fingers crossed. And like Sam said, or I'll just make a little funny mark. When Marge mentions tombstones, I thought of Doc Holliday and the Earp Brothers and the shotgun effect, but I know that it is starting to form now where there's a good storyline and stuff. So I'm sure that in the 11th hour, it'll fold and be on the front page of the newspaper, not buried to the back line.
Yeah, well, thank you. I should also mention that the timeline for all that is, we're looking at 2 years once the process actually kind of gets started. So the plan will not be together for, more than 2 years from today, it looks like. At least that's a recommendation. Brent, did I see your hand go up?
Yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
just in the choppy audio and the noise in the background, I heard you mention your subcommittee, the consultants, and this consultant review. Are these county consultants, county staff, or is this a third-party consultant that you're referring to?
This would be a third party. So there's been, I think, $500,000 is the budget figure that's been mentioned of money set aside essentially to hire a third party. And yes, to come in and do kind of a more objective view about what is going on in the county, and then what are the roads ahead and which paths should the county be looking at. And there has been, talk there about essentially, Sam used the term adaptive management, to try to make it a resilient plan. So it's not setting something in stone, but rather activating a kind of a knowledge base, I guess, would be so that we can navigate more knowledgeably through the landscape ahead. Yeah, Marge.
Yeah, and focusing on the idea of circular economy and the way they're phrasing it, cradle to cradle, so that there is more emphasis on the waste that's produced, not just what is being eliminated, but how it's being produced, and legislating and that there is more responsibility placed on the packaging and the producers of stuff.
Right, moving upstream.
Yeah.
So as the stuff doesn't end up in the waste bin in the first, to prevent it from actually landing there, because then it's a problem to sort out, to recycle, to deal with, etc.
Yeah, and the fact that we have such a responsive community and a community that's so engaged in environmental and sustainability issues, you know, I mean, we could really do something spectacular here.
Yeah.
If it
But,
works that
you know,
way.
of course, also recognizing that, you know, in terms of the landfill, you know, Benton County is only a very small part of what goes into the landfill. And so we're really looking at being more of a player, you know, in the region, because that's the way to actually influence, you know, what happens environmentally in Benton County. Any other questions about the C1 subcommittee? Yeah, Chuck.
Let's see, the C1's on longevity, right?
No, I'm sorry. The C1 is indeed the management plan.
Sorry, A1. I always, thank you.
Right. So we ready to move on to A1 then? So, okay, good. So, so the A1 subcommittee is charged with, one, determining the size of the landfill, which I think, which may seem like an easy question, and I think I've kind of mentioned this before, but it actually turns out to be pretty complex, because we're kind of talking about a theoretical volume conflicting with actual volume. Theoretically, the landfill could be a certain size, but in actuality, there can be restrictions upon that. And I won't go into essentially the long process that the subcommittee has gone through to essentially establish what that size is, but there has been a long process, and so there really is, we're coming to a conclusion about what that size is. But as Joel kind of alluded to, the primary difficulty with that is just that right now, a portion of the theoretical volume of the landfill is being quarried. And so a certain significant volume of that right now is actually still solid rock. And so Republic is telling us that they are in discussions with Knife River about how to essentially produce, what to do about essentially that, because the landfill, the current part which is being filled, is going to fill up in the next 3 years or so. You know, there's kind of a timeline for that, depending on how much trash comes in. And then operations would need to move into cell 6. So cell 5 is being finished, move into cell 6. Cell 6 is where the quarry is. And so the quarry operations would pretty much have to suspend at that point in order for the landfilling operations to begin. And so there is indeed a bind about what to do about the unquarried rock, you know, which does not appear to have an easy solution, because you know, we've been getting reports in the subcommittee that Republic and Knife River have been talking about it for a couple of months now. So we can back up a little bit, and the reason for this situation is that Republic began accepting quite a bit more waste than anyone had thought, starting in 2017. And so that has kind of precipitated this problem. That, and the fact that Republic did not get the expansion that they were thinking that they were going to get last year, because that would have served as an alternate place for them to put the garbage while they finished quarrying the quarry. So that is a situation, you know, in that regard, concerning the landfill size. We've learned in SWAC meetings earlier, well, in the middle of last year, Ian McNabb told us that that the landfill has been using the maximum figure actually as the landfill capacity, even in the report for 2021, because that is their capacity on paper. It just happens to have rock in it right now, quite a bit. So that's one situation where the size of the landfill and the future kind of collide. Are there any questions about that? Yeah, Chuck.
I may just put a little different slant on it since I'm in the
Okay.
committee too.
Yeah, please.
Let's say instead of a theoretical design, it is a design by engineers from cell 1 through 6. Now, just like when you start a house, you don't start on the roof, you got to start on the base rock and then the foundation. So the design is for the full house, if you will. That is a good scenario there. The implication is here is the homeowners want to move in on the 1st of November. And we're only going with the foundation, the floor, and framed up. So there's an implication here of timing for the excavation by Knife River. Albeit though, this process has been, that I know of, since we're receiving rock there from the railroad from the 90s, progressing through this with a couple hiccups, of course, where they've had to displace Coffin Butte. Go ahead.
So sorry to interrupt, Chuck. I'm happy to hear your point, but I'm also just realizing that we're coming to the end of our meeting. We have 3 minutes left, and I see Daniel has raised his hand, so need to cut over to him. Oh, and well, let's hear what Daniel has to say first, but I'm looking at you, Debbie.
Sorry, Debbie. Thanks, Ken. I just wanted to, or sorry, Chair Eklund, I just wanted to respond to Joel's comment and question earlier, and something that you brought up about the discussion with Knife River and Republic Services. And just to clarify that Benton County isn't in discussion with Republic or Knife River about their quarry or landfill operations. And the clarification that I got from our planning director is essentially that Knife River and Republic reached out to the county to ask preliminary questions about county zoning code and areas that might be allowable to store quarry rock, but they're not in active discussion with the county currently, whether together or individually. I just wanted to clarify that. Thanks.
Okay, good. Thank you, Daniel. Debbie, did you have a question or? Yeah, good.
Yeah, it's actually a practical comment because we're near the end.
Yes.
So I will be traveling overseas and on quite a different time zone. So I'm going to try to be involved in the February meeting. I'd like to know when draft 3 or whatever form the document will get, and what is the most efficient way for me to contribute comments. I mean, it's not, I just don't want to reply with this giant thing. So which is about all I know how to do. Okay.
That's a very good questions, Debbie. So over to you, Daniel. Do you have an idea when? Yeah, so Wednesday, that draft will be released. I believe Wednesday evening, the 25th, I think. Okay. And then Sam had a couple ideas about how to best get that information. There was the idea of a survey potentially being used to sort of catalog the information and recommendations for different sections. I think that's to be determined. I'm not sure if that's still on the table, but I will reach out once that gets clarified, unless Sam can clarify it now. I will reach out with sort of an overview email about the process and the best way to respond, but I see Sam is on.
Yeah. So 30 seconds, I know you're running out of time. It hasn't been finally established yet, but in a nutshell, I think the only real concern is that the comments be aggregated by subcommittee report. And then there'll be a box or a page that says, you know, overall comments, but somehow to code the comments so that we can quickly roll them up and get, for instance, all SMMP comments in one place, shipped off to SMMP, all capacity rolled up, shipped off for them so they have time to look at them. So the actual mechanics haven't been figured out yet.
Yeah, Debbie.
Can I reply? Well, Daniel, if you send something out, can I reply to you, divide it up by those comments related to each subcommittee? And would you assemble them, or is this still to be decided and I'll hear later?
I think Sam is going to propose a way to best do it. I think if that way doesn't necessarily work out for you, especially with travels, we can come up with a better option. And however it reaches me, I will make sure to kind of aggregate that information with everyone else's. I'll do
Thank you
my
very
absolute
much.
best. Yeah.
Thank you.
Excellent. Oh, Joel. You're muted.
Yeah, I'm going to give deference to Debbie here. Whatever she needs to make this work, we need to make it happen because we're almost short on a quorum for this whole group. So, and I'd like to make sure we get SWAC's and DSAC's voice into this.
Yeah, and if you need some assistance, you know, if I can be of any assistance to you, Debbie, I'm quite happy to do that. Okay, we're at our time limit. Any last questions, comments?
I just
Was
have a
that
comment. I just
Yeah,
have
go
a
ahead.
comment for Debbie. Safe travels, and I hope you're going someplace fun because it sounds fun to me. More fun than reading all this stuff.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I get to go
can
to
you give
New
us?
Zealand. Thank you.
New
Yeah.
Zealand,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
I'm so jealous.
Are you
And-
going to Hobbiton?
No.
And we haven't heard where Brent is, but wherever he is too, safe travels. So
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
other side of the world is all I heard.
Yep.
All right. I hope that was helpful for everyone. It was very helpful for me. So we have some serious work to do. It's going to be arriving soon, you know, via Daniel with instructions. So if we can be diligent about that for kind of the reasons that Joel said, I would certainly very much appreciate that. So thank you all. I'm gaveling this meeting closed.
Good to see you all.
We'll see you on the 8th.
Thanks,
Be
everyone.
safe.
Good night.